the shoulders opposite of the way you're tilting the hips. My name is Jimmy Reyes, and I'm a professional comic book illustrator. Welcome to my channel, where I share tips, techniques, and an inside look at being a freelance illustrator. All right, this time you're a panther, and you're on the prowl. You're after your prey. You're gonna get him, okay? Perfect, right there. Hold that. That is amazing. You are great. You are an amazing panther. Look at you go. All right, we're done. You are an artist's dream. It has been an honor working with such a professional. When you work by yourself, I guess you start to get a little weird. We'll call it creative. Well, thank you so much for joining me for another video. If this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. This particular video is going to be an exercise on gesture drawings. How to keep fluid momentum in your figures so that your figures do not look stiff. All right, well, let's get started, and I'll stop talking. Okay, the program that I'm drawing in is Clip Studio Paint. If you're new to gesture drawing, I would like to suggest that you put away your eraser. The only supplies that you need are going to be your pencil and your paper, or if you're drawing digitally, you can draw right along in Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop or any other program that you're comfortable drawing in. And the reason I suggest that you do not place an eraser out as part of your supplies is that you don't want to erase any of your lines. These are quick drawings. These are drawings that you're placing down. They're sort of shorthands, you know, just getting the image down on paper, and you want to have a fluid motion. You want to get into the habit of creating these very loose, very fluid drawings. You don't want to draw a static figure. You want to try to draw each figure in some type of motion. You can move on to figures that are static or that are seated or laying down, but you want to mix in there some of the ones that are majority of them to be in motion and fluid. Now, a lot of times these drawings aren't seen by anyone else. An artist will do these drawings as an exercise to stretch and work out your creative muscles before you actually begin the work. You know, most artists will do some type of sketch like this before actually drawing comic book pages. So a lot of times this isn't something that is seen by anyone else. So don't worry how it looks. Don't worry if it's not the perfect drawing. You know, we're not putting any rendering, we're not putting any detail in, we're just trying to get the motion. So you want to stay fluid. You want to continue to draw. You want to keep that pencil on that paper and just keep moving that pencil around. There are several center lines. There are several motion lines that are used in gesture drawing. There will be a center line that goes from her back on the ballerina all the way down her back, upper hip, and all the way out to her toe. And that's the center line that I use when drawing a gentleman who is trying to dance. You know, someone who's sort of in a dance position. There's also going to be a center line. The center line is generally what I use is from the head down the back and down to the leg in motion. And that'll help me create the movement and the motion, and it gives my mind's eye something to follow when I'm using hand-eye coordination, where my hand is printing out the image that I am sketching. So you want to have fun with this. You know, you don't want to always make it extremely challenging or be afraid of it. You know, you want to make this fun. You don't want to be afraid of gesture drawings. You want to, you know, enjoy what you're doing. So I drew a guy that's just trying to dance, and I thought it'd be kind of funny if a guy who's really not that great at dancing, trying to dance and try to create that kind of movement. So for me, I'm just, you know, trying to have a lot of fun with it. And this is kind of a goofy dance, and sketching it. And as I mentioned, you don't erase, you just continue, keep drawing, and just keep sculpting the lines, keep adding more and more lines. And if in the beginning, if you like, you can lighten up on your pencil and draw light, and then as you get more confident with your lines, start to place heavier lines and thicker lines. That way the thinner lines fade into the background, and they're still there, visible, you know, but you didn't, you know, erase anything. So I'm placing these musical notes on top of his head. The only two musical notes that I can think of. I really don't even know what the musical notes are or what they look like. So just really having fun with it. This guy's just, you know, he's just doing the goofiest dance. there is. And I like to draw, real simple hands and feet in there. I don't want to leave it just pointed, because for me, I kind of feel like I cheat if I don't draw in the shape of the hand, or the illusion of a shape of the hand or the foot. So this one here, after I've drawn a few figures that are in motion, I'm going to draw a figure that is seated. I've drawn two figures that are pretty good shape physically, so I want to go ahead and draw a figure that is not in such great shape. This guy is eating, burger, and he's having a shake with his burger and stuff. And it's just the things that go through in my mind. I just sit back and I try to imagine just this heavy-set guy, and what would he have? He's got this big cheeseburger and a shake in the other hand, and he's not going to be up dancing around because he's not really energetic, physically fit or anything. So I'm going to make him seated. And so, the more detail you give your brain and the more information you provide your brain, the easier it is, to complete the drawing when your hand is reaching that paper and you're starting to transfer it onto the screen or onto paper if you're drawing traditionally. A lot of this figure's form is going to be thick, so he has wider shoulders and chest and his abdominal area. So since his stomach is going to lean over, his body, I'm going to make his legs a little smaller, or appear to be smaller, because his stomach is taking up and covering most of the area. So just, trying to have, fun with it, as I mentioned, and I really stress that because, I really want you to have fun and not be afraid of gesture drawings. That saying, dance like no one's watching, which is what the character is doing on there. But I want you to draw like nobody's watching. This is just for you. This is, your gesture drawings that no one else is going to see. It's a good way to loosen your figure drawing and not make them so stiff. So I'm drawing in a little chair, and the guy's sitting on there, and little pieces flying off of his burger and stuff, and starting to add a little thick neck for the character, and his neck and shoulder kind of go into his head. There's not a lot of definition there. I'm going to give him a baseball cap because I'm wearing a baseball cap. So I just kind of thought this would be fun. I don't know, it's me after, eating some cheeseburgers and a shake. So I've got these three figures. They're up on the screen. They're each different from each other, but I still want to continue drawing. I want to draw several figures and try to draw as much as I can. A lot of times I will draw about 20 to 30 different little figures like this on a blank piece of Bristol board, just because it takes me that long to really get in rhythm. I'm going to start adding in another figure, and I like to start with the head. And if you watch the previous video where I did show an introduction on gesture drawing where I drew the Hulk, is that I like to start off with the head and shoulders and then move into the rest of the figure. And so for this figure, she's lying down, but even though she's lying down, I want to challenge myself to kind of contort the figure and still kind of create some movement, even though this figure is static in a relaxed position. I still want to make it look like it's layered, like there's weight to the figure, with simple shapes, just creating the illusion of actual form and just using simple line work to create shape and form. So I wanted to add a bit of a challenge for myself where I want to have her cross her leg over the other. I want it to overlap, and I want the leg that is overlapped to appear to be closer, and the leg that is behind to be foreshortened. I want it to fade off into the distance. So, and I always want to draw feet and hands in there, or at least the simple outline of a foot or a hand. And I'm gonna give her some hair. You don't really have to in gesture drawing. You can just draw the shape of the head, really. But I kind of want to start adding some movement in there, even though she's pretty static. Maybe there's some wind blowing. Maybe she's lying on the beach and she's on a beach towel, and so I'm gonna make the wind blow and make the wind give her some movement that way. And I didn't want to draw as thin of a figure as I did for the ballerina, because ballerinas generally are very thin, petite. This figure, I want to give her more curves, make her just a little bit fuller figure. So, because I don't want all my figures to look the same. In comic books, I mean, it appears that most figures in comics are all super fit, and a lot of them are, but there are characters that you will draw in a comic book. A lot of times they're background characters or supporting characters, and some main characters are heavyweight and full figure characters. So to me, those are always fun to draw. I like that. It's more challenging than drawing the muscle characters, I think, because we don't actually draw these figures as often. So I like to get good exercise in there and draw as much as I can and draw a variety of figures. I've also seen messages online where people have asked about drawing animals, or they've mentioned how difficult it is for them to draw an animal, or I've seen tweets about it. And I really don't understand how it's difficult for somebody to draw an animal when you can draw a human figure. It's shape and form, and it's really not that different. Especially when you're doing gesture drawings, you start to realize and figure out that it's really just shapes, and it's the line work, and it's the way that you place your lines down to create the illusion of the shape and form. And to draw the animal's anatomy, they have shoulders, they have an abdominal area, they have a hip area. Most of them are four-legged animals. Of course, there's animals with 2 legs, and like birds and wings and stuff. But for the most part, drawing the anatomy for them is, when you do gesture drawings, you start to figure out, hey, I can really do this. This really isn't that difficult. I saw a tweet from an editor that wrote that he couldn't believe that people were having such a difficult time drawing horses. And I posted a picture of a horse that I drew. I drew Red Sonja on a horse because I really enjoy drawing animals. And if you haven't guessed what the animal on this screen is, it's a little bunny rabbit. He's kind of just moving around. He's carrying a little carrot in his mouth, and his ears are back, his head's up because he's carrying this carrot. He's kind of proud, and he's in motion. So for a rabbit, if the hind leg is moving forward, then the 2 front legs are going to move back to meet them because of the way that the rabbit runs or hops. But if the rabbit's in a slower motion, his legs are going to be sort of one forward, one back, but his 2 front paws generally will come back at the same time. So they do move in a different way. They don't run in the same way that people do, but it's really not difficult at all drawing animals, especially horses. And so I figure, okay, well, one of the things I'd like to show is how to draw a horse. And a horse really isn't that difficult. The horse has a very thick neck, very long neck. They do have very broad shoulders, a thicker stomach and abdominal area, a huge hind. Their back end's very, very big, but their legs are thinner. And so it's really not that difficult once you start doing it over and over again. So I'm sitting here drawing the horse, and I like to start the same way with the head with the horse, and go into the neck, and then start moving into the spine, and start creating the hind part of the horse. I like to be able to draw in that the big back end for the horse. So then it helps me to draw the parts of the horse where I am most confident in. So then it builds up my confidence, and I go, okay, I can draw this horse, and it helps me to continue on and not mind block myself instantly by putting up this mental roadblock going, oh, I can't do it. So that's the whole reason for gesture drawing, is to break that roadblock, get yourself out of that mindset. You can do it. No one's looking at this drawing. This is what you do to loosen up, to move your figures around. And it doesn't matter if your gesture drawings don't look like mine. If you're just starting to draw and you don't feel that they're at the level where you want them to be, or look as similar as mine or as loose, that's okay, because neither did mine when I first started drawing. My figures were very stiff, but gesture drawing has helped loosen that, and it will for you as well. So continue drawing, just keep doing more and more doodles. That's really what this is. It's just a lot of loose lines and just drawing over and over. And for me, the thing was, I don't really draw digitally, so it was a bit of a challenge to learn to draw digitally, to get comfortable with the type of pen and the type of tablet that I'm drawing on. And not looking down as I'm drawing, having to look up at this computer screen as I'm drawing. So it's a bit challenging, but I went ahead and just kept trying and keep doing it, and I'm starting to feel much more comfortable and confident. So so I can relate. I know what it's like to draw something and not feel as confident as you want to be, but you will get there. It's like I can show you all the examples and show you all the techniques, and you can watch it for hours and hours. But if you're not doing the work and you're not actually drawing and applying that, you're not going to progress, you're not going to grow. It's like watching workout videos on YouTube, and you can watch them for hours and hours, but if you're seated and you're not out there working out, then you're not going to have the gain. You're not going to gain muscle, you're not going to lose weight, you're not going to see any type of development. And that's the same thing with your creative muscle. You have to draw. You cannot skip this step. There's no other way to get better. You can watch all the videos you want. I'm not against watching videos. It's good. You can watch and learn techniques and see how different artists approach different things and how they translate certain figures and cars and things into comic book format, because comic book has its own style. So it's good to watch that, but you're not going to improve unless you're drawing over and over and over again. And the more and more you do it, the better you will get. You will be a great artist. You just have to keep doing it, keep drawing. It's just like any athlete who wants to improve. They have to put in the hours in order to improve. And this is a good way, is to challenge yourself, put yourself out there against a good opponent. And the good opponent is to get out there and draw without an eraser. You want to erase. That's, as an artist, a lot of us, we are our worst critics, and we want to fix and draw the best that we can, and we want to remove any of, the imperfections out of it. When you're doing gesture drawing, you got to fight that urge. You just want to keep drawing, keep putting that pencil down on paper without erasing. I'm drawing a female figure here, making this figure as well a bit more curvy, and I want to show how to kink the hips and shoulders. If the right shoulder is tilted down, then the right hip should be kinked as well. So you want to make them opposite. So So if her left shoulder is tilted up, then you want her right hip to be tilted up. When you're drawing the female stance, you want to tilt the shoulders opposite of the way you're tilting the hips. So I'm making it here as if, I was thinking either, she's looking in the mirror, or maybe she's got a blow dryer, and it's blowing her hair back. And so that's kind of the image that was in my head. And I always want to draw feet, as I mentioned. So, I sit there and I start sketching out the shape for the foot and the arch that goes in the inside of the foot. Here I am trying to sketch them as best that I can. The more that I draw feet and hands, the better I'll get at it, because for some reason, I think most artists, we struggle with hands and feet for some reason. It's just something that I guess it's not as appealing to want to learn to draw when you're first drawing. I'm forcing myself now to, every time, is to make sure the hands and feet are visible in the drawing as much as possible. So I'm going to zoom out here for a minute, and we can get to see the drawings and see what we've got so far. We've got a ballerina, a guy trying to dance. We've got me eating a cheeseburger and a shake. Got some female figures, got some animal figures in there. And see what else do we need here. I'm thinking a young girl sitting down listening to her headphones. And the image that comes to mind is, it was my daughter when she was younger. My daughter is an adult now, but when she was younger, she would listen to these headsets, and the way she would sit, I always remember, for some reason, the images of my daughter younger are stronger in my memory than they are of her as an adult. I don't know why. I'm not sure. But So this is the image that's in my head. So I'm drawing a female figure seated forward. You know, her elbows are bent and her hands up on her chin. You know, I think, you know, the type of gestures in that, the position that the figure's in really helps as well. You know, where it's a female figure and her hands up on her chin, you know, resting her chin up on her palm and resting her elbow on her knee, and it all, you know, has weight because you have to rest. One thing is resting over another. So it doesn't look like she's, you know, just kind of sitting upright, propped up. You know, she's hunched, leaning over. Most of the time, most of us have bad posture. We're going to lean forward, hunch forward a lot. So to make it look much more believable and, you know, create the illusion of, you know, the weight, and to suspend the disbelief of a viewer, you know, gonna make the character lean forward, and she's leaning forward on an office chair, an office desk. You know, it's easy for me to draw the office desk because I'm sitting on one right now, so it's an image that just popped in my head right away. So I'm just trying to go with the first thought in my mind, the first image that my mind has, and just start going with that and working with it. So just you know, putting more shapes in there and darkening in her headphones. And I didn't draw in little detail as far as, like, I was thinking about maybe she's holding her cell phone and the earbuds or headphones are connected by Bluetooth or something, but didn't really go that far in the drawing, although that was in my mind at the time. And I put little musical notes so that, you know, she's listening to music. I'm not even sure if these are musical notes, but it's just what looks like musical notes to me. I'm not a musician, so. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to another figure. And so trying to create the image within my mind, for some reason, the image that came in my head is the hairstyle would be for a woman to have her hair up in a bun. You know, I just think that I don't know, I wanted to draw the neck and the back. I wanted it to be exposed, and I think a way to kind of cheat with that, instead of making the character bald and still giving the character hair, was to make her hair go up and have it in a bun. And I want to make a character who's, well, since I drew a seated female, I want to draw one that's sort of, it's still seated, but at a different angle, where she's sitting on her legs. And that had always been very challenging for me. So it's not the easiest, you know, position to draw, but I want to challenge myself, and that's what this is. You know, this is, you know, challenge yourself to draw the things that you're not comfortable drawing, because that's how you're going to strengthen, you know, as if your left hand was your weak hand or your right hand's your weak hand. The more that you use it to do things that it's not comfortable with, the more you'll strengthen it, you know. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm kind of strengthening that weak side of my creative muscle. So I want this character to be seated on her legs, and so she's seated on a foot over here, and since she's sitting on one of her legs, you really just can draw just the foot coming out behind her bottom, and it's really not that hard. I kind of figured that out and went, yeah, I can just do this, and it's you know, it shows the shape. And the one thing I keep doing in this computer program is somehow I keep picking up the white background for the, you know, for the color, and then I have to go back in and pick gray again. My pencil starts to disappear and want to draw in white, and for some reason I think it's the way I have my pen set up. I keep clicking the button. When you do a lot of figure drawing classes, from I remember, people were always sitting on crates or sitting on a stool or something. So that's kind of what came to my mind, as I kind of drew back to the memory of when I was in a figure drawing class. And the figure was seated on a crate, so I drew that. And I remember there was like a blanket, so I even drew that in there, a blanket and stuff. Just trying to remember a similar position that I had drawn before, one that was very difficult for me. So I find that the more and more that I draw this particular pose, the easier it gets. So you want to be able to, draw gesture drawings every day. The more time you can devote to your craft, the better you're going to get. I've seen young artists who decided that they really wanted to improve in drawing. So he started to draw figures like this for hours and hours. He spent weeks just every day just drawing these figures, and he had about 100 pages of gesture drawings like this. And within about a year, he improved a lot, where it was very impressive. So I drew all these different figures that are pretty realistic figures, because I don't always want to draw the superhero figure, because I know a lot of editors do want to see a regular character. They want to see animals. They like to be able to see a character out of shape, males, females, young, old. So you want to be able to draw a variety. But you're also going to have to draw the superhero characters. So let's say that there are two superheroes here that are fighting, and I want to draw him in a punching motion. So if you see that the superhero that I'm drawing is right-handed, so the right hand is going up, and in that same line that would be the center line from his hand, his right hand, it would go through and it would be in his right leg, and he's elevating the opposite leg. So if you're throwing that right hand up, then you're going to counterweight that motion, that movement, with the opposite leg. It's going to be the left leg elevated, and the right hand is going to be going up. The torso is going to be twisted. The left shoulder will then be tilted back just a little bit, because that's the kind of motion and momentum that we do if we were to throw an uppercut punch. And so drawing in this program, I still have some difficulties here and there. I accidentally move the screen and start moving the tools accidentally here and there, because I'm so used to drawing traditionally. But I'm starting to like drawing digitally. It's fun to do. It's got some advantages to it. I do like. So I'm kind of imagining this character. I gave him a cape, and he's kind of floating up as he's doing this punch. He's kind of, I don't know, like a Street Fighter punch or something. And so the guy that he's punching, you want them to capture this at the most dynamic frame. Say it was a motion picture and there are several frames and the figures are moving throughout these frames. Well, you want to capture it at the most dynamic point, where he's just made contact in the uppercut and the guy is like completely arched back. His back is arched, his head's tilted back, and he's kind of being knocked up off the ground. That's where you want to snap that photograph. If you ever seen the old black and white photos where it shows a gentleman that is running and he's leaping over a hurdle, and it shows him in each frame by frame as he is running and leaping over the hurdle. Well, you want to catch the frame and use the frame that is the most dynamic, and that's what you want to draw. Tilting the head back seems to be very difficult for most people. I know I struggled with that when I first started drawing. And drawing the human head really isn't that difficult once you start to learn how to draw your figure in shapes. Everything that you draw is basic shapes. That's really all that it is. And gesture drawing is just creating the illusion of that shape by drawing in a very simple line. So that's what I did to tilt the head back. His back is arched, and since he is being knocked upward, his knees are going to be bent. He's losing his footing. He's losing his step. He's being knocked upward. One hand is kind of reaching up and out. Maybe he was trying to block the punch. The left hand is up, because I don't want any of the limbs of my figure to just be static. I don't want any of them to just kind of be dropped and propped down. I could have drawn one of the hands back, and kind of just propped down, but since we capture this right in the middle of the motion, the natural reaction is to protect your face. So his hands are up, elevated up near his face, and that's kind of where we snap this photograph, and his knees are bent and he looks like he's about to fall back. So you want to be able to draw dynamic motions and movements. You want to be able to draw the simple figures, everyday figures and characters. And that's what I've tried to do here. And if anything that you can remember from this video is to draw like no one's watching. Draw over and over and over. Gesture drawing. Just keep the pencil on the paper and don't erase. I'd like to thank you guys so much for taking the time to sit here with me and listen to these crazy artistic rants and rambles and stuff. And I'm trying to explain it and articulate it as best that I can. I'm not so used to having to talk out loud and articulate everything that I'm thinking as I'm drawing. So as I do more and more tutorials, hopefully I'll get better. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to visit again. And please subscribe, click the bell notification, and don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter.